Good afternoon. You're listening to the Spirit Discussions podcast. Today we're going to be diving deep into the Wounded Waters Bleeding with Crave. Could you tell me who you are?
Hello, everyone, and I'm Crave. I'm a Spirit Island player, and I specifically like to play a lot of Wounded Waters.
How long have you been playing Spirit Island as a whole?
I think it's 1 year and a half since I played.
Oh, you're like kind of fresh to the game. You started after Nature Incarnate came out.
Yeah, exactly. So when I started playing the game, this game is, it is what it is after Nature Incarnate, which is very lucky for me. I can play all the spirits that have been released. I don't need to wait for anything.
Which one was your first spirit?
It was Lightning. I remembered it very correctly, and the game I played was a Russia 3, I believe, and it felt very powerful to try to be able to make lower powers fast.
It is pretty powerful. So I assume you had fun that game, and you then kept playing. What led you to Wounded Waters?
So after the Lightning game, I've been trying to explore the other spirits, and it feels very amazing that each spirit basically tells their own story, right? So, during the process of exploring, I kind of just played Wounded and started to think, okay, this spirit might be fun, and started to, dive deep into this spirit.
That's super cool. Do you like the story in Spirit Island? Do you think that it comes through the gameplay, or what's your experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So each spirit, for example, lightning represents, the lightning, the thunder of the nature, and it feels very thematic to play. Every mechanic the spirit has is aligned to the entire theme, and it's like similar to a lot of other spirits. Like, for example, many minds is a bunch of small animals trying to act in a certain way that has some kind of consciousness on their own. And it also feels very great to, move a bunch of beasts together and do stuff on your will, something like that.
What do you think of Wounded Water's story? They are literally dying, and you feel you have a lot of presence on the board to start, but it's dwindling.
Yeah, Wounded is the theme of, you started the game very wounded, very weak, but you're trying to figure out how to reclaim your previous strength. And you're in this path, you're deciding between different paths. Are you going to be angry to the invaders? Or are you trying to remain calm as your previous form? And it creates some interesting, different unique stories that you can tell for this story, for this spirit.
Whenever you go down these paths, that's like the beast path or the animal path. Do you have a preference as to which one you're going down usually?
It's different every time I play. There's no predefined path that I have in mind, but it differs from each game I play against each adversary I play. So it's very flexible and fluent.
Whenever you are healing throughout the game, you have the opportunity to go down one path or the other, but you're not locked into exclusively that path. Do you ever mix and match the paths, going animal and then water, or animal or water and then animal?
Yeah, absolutely. So like on the first healing card you can claim is either animal card or a water card. But then after that you can clearly claim another healing card. You can mix match the water with the animal and or the water with the animal. So I sometimes do that and it feels very fun. You can do that absolutely, and it's also very strong. And you can also feel like you're turning into a mixture of spirit that is both angry and also kind of have some serenity in yourself or something around that kind of feeling. It's very fun to explore such paths.
With there being so many options
Hmm.
through the healing cards, whenever I was playing games in preparation for this discussion, I felt like I had to play 4 times as many games as I normally do. It didn't feel like one spirit every single game. It felt like four different spirits depending on what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what's so charming about this spirit. You're actually playing like four different kind of possibilities that you can try to dive into. You're not just playing one spirit from the start. It's kind of like Starlight, but it's more specific into between the, elements of animal and path. I kind of like it.
Do you ever not pick up water animal cards? I guess let me rephrase that. There are a couple of games where I would draft and I didn't see any water or any animal. How impactful is that to your game plan when you don't find any elements that you care about?
Well, yeah, it's a very interesting topic because Wounded is a spirit that cares about element a lot because it has two elements that specifically says it needs water or animal, and if you can hit them, you can have very strong control effects or damage effects. But in cases where you don't, you always can play around that by either picking the card that has very strong effects, or you can prep for a early reclaim for your uniques which have animal or water. So it's very fun to try to optimize from this kind of situation.
On Wounded Waters, you don't have a growth option on turn one. I feel like that's a little strange. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, you actually don't have a growth choice on the first three turns, not just turn one, right? You are locked
True.
into G2, G2, and G2 for the first three turns. Um, I think it still offers some very interesting growth dynamics just because you're drafting, right? You are looking at three drafts for the first three turns, and each draft offers a different interesting choice that you can take. For example, when you look at four cards that don't have either animal or water, you can still try to figure out how to make use of those drafts we have. And also, when you draft a card, because your early games only have that many card plays you can play, you can't play all your hands. You still have to plan around the future turns. When is this card going to be played? When is the best timing I can make use of this card? So it's still pretty much very interesting to try to, uh, optimize and plan your early games, even though you only have one growth option.
Man, my head is spinning. I feel like I want to talk about so many things. I guess the first one is Wounded Water starts with no energy gain, but 4 energy in its pocket. Its starting
Yep.
hand costs 4, and it only has one card play for the first 3 turns? 2 turns? Well, how does this energy economy shape the way you think about the spirit?
I think the zero energy is very successful at delivering the theme of the spirits because you want to make it look weak as much as possible. But then maybe the devs realize that it can't function with with zero energy income and one cost uniques. So the force energy is basically the compensation for you to try to play the game as normally as possible. It feels great. And a side effect of this four start energy is that you can tech for a major draft on the early game. You have four energy, even though you have the zero income, you can still play some like four cross majors that might have a big impact in the game you have.
Do you ever look at a major turn one?
I sometimes do, usually against Sweden, because Sweden is an extremely fast-tempoed adversary, right? You can't just play normally against Sweden. You need to try to YOLO a major that can solve like immediate problems and stabilize your board. Are other situations where you're playing cross-board, you're playing with another support spirit that can, make you able to become powerful much more earlier. And that way you can try to draft a major on turn one to maximize your ability to look at good majors and carry the whole boards.
You mentioned Sweden, and they drop down their double blight whenever they hit really hard, and you don't have a lot of
Yeah,
early game tools to stop that. You have this really cool
absolutely.
ability to gather one blight into your lands, but whenever you're facing Sweden, they still have one chilling out there. Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's absolutely a problem. Let's imagine board E wetland start, right? One of the wetland is a town and explorer, the other wetland is a town and and a city explorer and a town explorer, and both lands are building. It's like the nastiest opening of Sweden. You can't just solve this situation with just gather one blight. You have to tech towards a major. So yeah, it's really a problem that some Sweden explorers just threaten like a bajillion blight for you, and sometimes a blight cascade, just because we are not fast enough to react. And that is another reason that taking towards the early major is very important. And yeah, making use of majors is also very fun, trying to look at the cards and see which cards can, save you out of this mess and then try to stabilize your board.
I probably would lose in that board position that you just described because I wouldn't pick up a major super early, knowing that I have no economy. I'll have to think about that really aggressively the next time I play the Spirit. I also think about their powers in their starting new hand. They're pretty strong, or at least above par, but they can't solve lands in the way that a lot of other Spirit's unique powers can. I find it really interesting that they're powerful and yet not impactful at times.
Absolutely. So your four starting cards. One of them can like solve Explore a Town, the rack with Grief and Pain card, which is like I think one of the strongest card you have in your hand. But then cards like Blood Water doesn't solve lands on itself. I mean it solves, but it's like 2 turns later. It's solving a ravage that happens 2 turns later, which is too slow. So yeah, that's why a lot of times I start with the card that solves the most problems. Sometimes Rack, sometimes Boon of Corrupted Blood. But your early game plan is to try to gain as much tempo as possible to not take too much blight. And yeah, it's very tricky, but it's also very fun to try to optimize your early game with very limited resources you have.
Two of their cards have a range from a blight that's really unique, and it doesn't feel like much of a restriction to me. Is it a bigger restriction than I think it is?
They are not definitely not so restricted in targeting because you're set up as another blight on your board, and you start on that blight already. So in like more than half the boards, your starting presence that has a blight can cover all the lands within one range. You basically never need to worry about the targeting for these two cards. But in some situations, when your friend gets to your head, like for example, you're playing with a downpour friend, which heals a lot of blight and heal them in the fast, which is extremely fast. Sometimes you may be out of blight on that board, so you don't have a way to target on that land. But usually, it's not too much a problem.
Especially because as you go through the game, this targeting restriction becomes less relevant as you're not playing these cards. It almost feels like it's geared towards making you feel well like the spirit is dying. It's pretty interesting in that way, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
The card that I had the most trouble to make feel good consistently was Boon of Corrupted Blood. And this is the one that targets another spirit or yourself, and it deals a damage in that land. If you target someone else, you get to destroy their presence and deal an extra damage to gather a beast. The one damage for myself against a lot of adversaries felt like not enough, and a lot of my friends didn't want to destroy their presence for that extra damage, or we couldn't find a good time to use it. When do you do this?
It depends on the adversary. Like some adversaries, we can just use Corrupted Blood on turn one. For example, against Russia, it doesn't require you to gain tempo, so you don't have to play rack. You can just use Corrupted Blood to deal one damage to an explorer and stop a build. And other situations include maybe pressure needs rack. I don't know. There are some situations where you just like to open it on turn one, but other situations you probably sometimes play it on turn three, and it is not very amazing effect, but it's still one damage, and one damage can sometimes hit your inmates. I mean, one damage can sometimes stop a build and also hit your innate with that animal element. As for trying to hit other spirits with the plus one damage and get a beast, um, it requires you to have a good target in mind. when you use this power card. Like for example, it sometimes can kill the inland town and completely pocket another spirit's board on turn one, which is very strong, right? It's another reason why like Trickster's Arson is strong because you can fast kill a town, and this effect is very strong if you can get ahead of the invaders very quickly. Also, when you hit your Roiling Wolf, which says when you gather a beast, you can deal +1 damage, it's gonna be like 3 damage in total, right? 1 damage in target land, 1 damage if you target another spirit, and gather a beast for 1 extra damage. That is able to kill a city, and that is also very strong.
The fact that this is fast is the most powerful thing in my mind. If this were a slow card, I don't know when I would find the time to use it.
Yeah, of course.
So the other two unique powers that they have are draw to the water's edge, and this gathers 2 towns. It's from a single land though, and whenever there are 2 towns in a single land, I feel like the land is already overrun and it's not enough. And if it's only 1 town, then it's a decent card.
Sometimes if you can solve a land by gathering a town, then it's worth it. It's worth it already. So for example, if you're playing against Prussia, um, one explorer in a town is about to ravage in one of the lands on the first turn explore, then you can just gather the town and solve the land completely. Uh, And sometimes against stuff like livestock is very notorious for having like multiple towns in one land, and multiple towns is going to ravage with a lot of a lot of damage. And if they deal a lot of damage, they may cause like irreparable damage to the land. So in this situation, draw is also very strong. And against England, it's also very relevant just because you can get a town out of the, potential London that they're going to build. So you don't have to worry too much about London because you already have always have a fast solve to the London problem.
Did you say London problem?
Yeah, because England has
Yeah,
has a
yeah.
lost
I'd never
condition.
heard of it be called that. I like
Yeah.
that. This card versus the adversary that came out with Nature Incarnate feels really good, where the loss condition is 8 blight or invaders, but it's at the end of fast, and this can get rid of 2 towns, and your Gather of Blight can remove something, so you feel not immune per se, but really good against their loss condition, HME. I definitely like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last card is Bloodwater and Bloodlust, and I find that this frequently is the card I don't want to play because it's not impacting the board in any immediate way. It adds a beast and a disease.
Yeah, yeah. But this is the most interesting card because, if you think about the four uniques, Corrupted Blood and Corrupted Blood is destroying an explorer, stopping a build, which solves a ravage happening next turn. Rack solves a land that is also about to ravage next turn, and draw solves the ravage on this turn. But Bloodwater is the only card that solves the ravage like 2 turns away. It's like too slow to actually function, right? You're adding it in the slow, and the disease is gonna stop a build next turn, and this land is going to ravage next turn. Usually, I don't like to play this card very often, um, but it's still like dual element for me, right? It's like water and animal, which hits your innate like very easily, and it also has a very special use case against HME mining expedition because disease serves as a rapid skip into this adversary, and it feels very good.
Yeah, that perfect elements feels really nice, and I think you hit the head on the nail there about it being slow. It deals with a ravage so far in the future, but I want to deal with things
Yeah,
now. The
yeah.
I do want to talk about disease kind of as a whole with the spirit because this is one of the few spirits that uses disease within its kit. But I don't feel like it's a disease spirit. Do you agree?
I completely agree. So wounded only has two sources of disease. One is from blood water, and the other is from your maxed out rhyodinate, which rarely happens in a lot of games. So for the most part, you're only adding a disease throughout the game just by playing blood order, and then basically forget about diseases. And if you compare with Spirit like the Vengeance, Vengeance can add disease, move disease, and by moving disease, moving a lot of other stuff, and also has a damage effect that scales the disease. It has a whole kit that is built around the disease, and it feels like its identity is the disease spirit, but Wounded only is only about adding a disease and less about building the whole game plan around the disease. It has its strength and its identity lies somewhere else, but it's still feels less of a disease spirit as vengeance.
Whenever this spirit was announced, the Kickstarter, they were showing off one spirit at a time and cards here and there. This was the one that I was most excited about. I loved the aesthetic and the theme and a disease spirit that wasn't the way that Vengeance worked. So getting around to playing it and feeling that it wasn't a disease spirit, it kind of disappointed me. On the other end, it's also a beast spirit, but it kind of doesn't feel like a beast spirit either. Not in the way that Sharp Fangs or Many Minds does. The spirit feels almost like it's in a weird limbo.
On the topic of speed spirit, yes, like many mind fangs also are similar like vengeance, right? They add disease, move disease, and have effects that scale with disease. They can be identified as beast spirits. Wounded is less about building the game plan around beast. It cares about adding beast because one of these healing cards is rolling, and rolling says whenever you add or move beast disease to a land, I mean beast to a land, you deal damage to that land. And a lot of times Wonder just adds a lot of these to the board and then ignore them for the rest of the game. I think it's like uh, a thing about Wounded is not that let me think. I think Wounded is more about the interaction with the healing cards and other things. It's more like a Starlight kind spirit that also happens to have some beast ad and disease ads, which is also quite fun. But if you are, categorizing these spirits, I think many of the fans are like in one category, and Wounded is and Starlight feels like in another category.
Whenever I went in it, reading the back and understanding that this was a beast disease spirit, I was definitely excited and I felt let
Mm.
down. But now that I've played it quite a bit and I understand that it's not those things, I'm swinging back around to it.
I think it's all about expectations. Yeah, like if you're expecting a spirit to be a disease spirit and it turns out to be less about disease, yes, I can feel you. But I played this game when every expansion is out. I just played each spirit as it is. I don't have those kind of expectations before I play any spirit. I just look at all their kit and figure out how their game plan is. Yeah.
That's super cool. I should adopt that in the future, but it's so challenging. There's the art and the cards, and we've got this little blurb on the back, and I've got this expectation. It's hard to avoid that.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, whenever you get your first healing card, you unlock the ability to do a new growth option. And this gives you 3 energy and it places a presence, but it kind of places 2. How often do you push this button?
I push this button whenever it is available, like starting from turn 4. But sometimes you need to reclaim. So it's like the standard growth I like to do the most is G2, G2, G2 because you have to, and then G4, and then G1 reclaim, then G4, G1, G4, G1 alternate. Because plus 3 energy is very strong. It's like a lot of energy that you can try to either play your uniques at all cost 1 or hit a major and try to make that major work. Also, it has a add a destroyed present from your destroyed pool. So effectively, you are adding two presents, and this combined range of this growth is four range, which is very, very far away. You can use this growth to like go across the board to the other side of the island and then try to support the other spirit that sits there.
Yeah, I noticed that range in a couple of situations through my gameplay where I didn't have the ability to do what I wanted to, but the modularity of three and then one feels really good.
Yeah.
Something that I thought was really fun to do would be a pretty greedy, and it didn't pan out as often as I wanted it to, but you G2 and eventually you unlock your healing card and you get to go off the bottom and you have three card plays and then you can G2 again and do the bottom to reclaim one and you'll have three cards in hand, but this only works if you find a bunch of zero cost cards. You've got to be pretty lucky, but it feels really good when it happens.
Yeah, for sure. If you can find a lot of zeros, then you can just use your one energy income and then be self-sufficient. But it relies on the draft a lot. So sometimes if you go unlucky, it might just not work. This plus three energy, it means a lot. So if you have like plus three, you don't have to commit to your top track at all to have a very healthy energy income. Like in a lot of games, when I G1, G3 alternate after first three turns, I can have so much energy that I can even fit in a major play without even investing on the top track.
The G3 giving you as much, not as much, more energy gain than shifting to the top track is strong. It makes it so you can play these really diverse cards all the time, every single turn.
Yeah.
So, do you think that Wounded Waters accepts support? They're a dying spirit. Should we help them up?
Yeah. So Wounded is a spirit that can take support and function much better, but it's also a spirit that can work pretty well on its own, which is quite different from what it looks like. So, right, for example, yeah, it looks like a spirit with very weak early game that requires help. But I've played a bunch of Wounded solo, and I find that it works against each single six. Like you can play this spirit a lot of times in single six and can form a win streak pretty much very easily against each single six. And the key behind that is that you have a gather blight option that makes you extremely tanky even though you are taking some forced blight in the early turns. And then you are able to remove a lot of plastics once you go to like turn 5 plus. And then you also have a lot of control tools. You also have a lot of drafts that can, offer you much more options.
I think that the spirit has a lot of options after you've gotten your first healing card. And it almost feels like your first two turns are stall, just kind of wait. And there's a lot of impact as to what it does for the rest of the game, and you're trying to find the best way to stall. But once when you unlock both healing cards, I felt like I kind of just chose a land and I said, "You're deleted. You're gone. You're blown up." And this is with either path.
Yeah, basically, either path is designed such that they can deal with a land that has like 7 or 8 health worth of invaders. The power level feels like on the same level. So sometimes you can get a feeling that either you choose ruin or you choose renew. It doesn't matter because you're already always solving a land. But it matters when you have chosen a lot of cards that have animal elements, right? Then you probably want to go to the ruin because you can hit your innate much more often, something like that.
Whenever you are playing your cards during the growth phase, you have to get a healing marker. And whenever you play a card like Blood, Water, and Bloodlust, it has both water and animal on it. so you get to choose which one you want. Are there any like weird things that you can do to be able to manipulate this?
Yes, absolutely. It's actually a very fun interaction. It's because when you play cards that are you tie with animal or water, you choose which element marker you gain after the spirit phase. And you also have a animal or water element on your track, which you can decide at any timing during this turn. So what can happen is that you play Blood Order and Bloodlust and claim, for example, animal because you want to take towards the animal path. And in the slow, you choose water as your element from your track and hit your water innate. So you're effectively gaining element marker from animal and also using water elements.
It feels counterintuitive, but that is how it works.
Yeah, it feels like and it gives you some flexibility that might work into some games. That feels great.
Throughout the game, you had mentioned that you often go to the bottom track, but the top track has a fire, plant, and an any. Do these matter?
These matters a lot because these elements can help you threshold more mages and also your innates. Um, it also gives you a lot of energy, right? From 3 energy to 4 energy to 5 energy, every jump on the energy spot is like very important if you are taking towards the major path.
Whenever I look at Wounded Waters and how powerful it can be, I think of Serpent and how they start off very weak and kind of unlock and then become very strong. In Wounded Waters, feels like they have a much shorter time to become unlocked. Am I just coping here?
You're right to conceive it. I mean, think it this way. Let me think. So, Serpent, first of all, is a support spirit. Even when it's like on the first few turns, it's still very strong. Let me put it this way, because it can give out absorb and flowing power, and also that primordial deep, which can significantly boost up another spirit. So I think the power curve on Serpent is like on turn 1 to turn 7, they're like a straight line that has like pretty high power level. But on turn 8 to turn 9, the track is fully unlocked, and you can get to like a very abrupt jump to even higher. But usually the game is irrelevant at that point because it takes too much time to grow to that spot. But it's still very strong on average just because of the power cards you can give out to other spirits. Wounded is more like on the first 2 turns, it has like a pretty low power curve. And then on turn 3, it has a bump. It goes higher. It can solve a lot of problems. And on turn 5, it just gets a more observed, power curve, power spike, and then it can go very strong after that. So yeah, I think both it's very understandable to have the feeling because both players have this kind of scale and then take over the game kind of vibe that is that I start small and then I'm going to be very strong later. So yeah, I think it's very fun to think of these spheres like as kind of one category, and I kind of agree with that.
Awesome. A heuristic that I have is that the snake takes a really long time to get online, and so even proliferating him, unless you're doing it a lot, isn't particularly powerful whenever you could take someone who's already powerful and make them even more powerful. But what I
Yeah.
found with Wounded Waters, whenever you're playing a card like Unrelenting Growth on them, you can get them to become like a 3/3 spirit before they've even gotten their second healing card. They feel unlocked before they're supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wounded takes proliferation much better than Serpent because, like, if you think about the tracks on Wounded, it has only 9 tracks to uncover. It has the shortest growth track of all spirits. The difference from empty track to, completely covered track is very high. Each proliferation is going to do some very amazing thing to this spirit. So it takes proliferation very efficiently.
I find that that's really fun to be proliferated, especially by such a large amount with unrelenting growth at once. It's really cool.
But I remember once a game I saw a play I saw a friend playing Wounded, and they draw like unrelenting growth on turn one, and what they did was that they take UG on themselves on turn one, and then take another constancy, and then play another UG, and then reclaim their UG to buff other players. It's really busted.
That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah,
You have written a guide for this spirit, right?
yeah.
What provoked you to do that?
I think the the main drive is that I think Wounded has a lot of strategy depth that you can use to to improve their game performance. And when I played Wounded, I find so many places that you can just do try to make the game look better, such that I think it deserves a guide.
Did you have fun writing that?
Yeah, of course. I think I wrote the entire draft in like one night, and then because that one night I drank too much coffee. I couldn't sleep. So like, okay, why not just make use of this night and write something that's constructive? And then so it is.
That's super cool. Have you thought about writing a guide for any other spirit, or have you written a guide for another spirit?
Not currently, because a lot of spirit that I'm interested already has a guide on themselves, right? Like Fangs, we have Area's guide. Many minds we have Race guide, and these guys are also amazing. So when the Dahan expansion comes out, I might be interested in more spirits that comes out, and I might do another guide for them.
I'm really excited about that expansion. I don't
Hmm.
know what it's going to entail other than it's Dahan focused. Do you have anything you're looking forward to with that expansion?
Yeah, I think
Speculation, of course.
I think one of the spirits that I'm interested is actually in many minds war. It's some spirit that is called Weaver or something. So I don't remember the exact sentences, but many minds war has a mention of that spirit. So I wonder what that spirit will look like, and I'm very excited to see how that spirit will come out.
I'm super excited. It's
Yeah.
in the future, and we're in the now.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some highlights when you're drafting? What minor powers are you looking for?
So first of all, you're looking for cars that have at least one animal or water. I know it sounds like a little bit boring, but Wounded is a spirit that cares a lot about elements. But on top of that, a lot of interesting decisions can come. You want cards that can have interaction with your special rules. So your special rule, it triggers with three kind of things altogether, by the way, from rolling and answering. One is push invaders, two is push Shahan, three is push or add beast. So cards like Swarming Wasp in your hand becomes one damage and add a beast, not just add a beast. And cards like Call to Trade now reads gather a Dahan, downgrade an invader, gather a town, downgrade that town as well. So it procs two towns and is very good. Even cards like, Call to Migration, which is a one cost slow card that gathers after 3 Dahan, pushes after 3 Dahan. It's generally considered a very bad card because it does nothing. It's slow and it costs 1. But for Wounded, you can use this card to proc one of your special rules and also set up Dahan in a very good place such that you can use your innate to push this Dahan again and then proc the special rules again.
One card I'm shocked that you didn't mention is Blood Draws Predators. I
Oh,
found this
yeah.
card to be. I feel like when I saw it, I took it. You know?
Yeah, I forgot to mention this card. My bad. So this card is basically, yeah, one cost quad element, and four of those elements are like completely perfect element for your element. It's so amazing of elements, and it's fast. It adds a reminder to the target land. Next time any invaders are destroyed, you're going to add a beast and then deal damage based on the beast count. For example, if they have two beasts after the beast add, they deal two damage. What's amazing on Wounded is that when they add a beast, you deal plus one damage because you proc your rolling rule. So, for example, if the land doesn't have any beast and you proc BDP, Broad Draws for Predators, you can deal one damage from add the beast and also deal one damage because the text already says deal one damage per beast. So you're dealing two damage over that. Imagine this land already has two beasts. Now you're dealing four damage. And it's very amazing for a minor card to be able to deal four damage. And on top of that, your bottom track has reclaim ones, right? So you can basically G1, G3 alternate to reclaim loop this card without having you commit to G1. And you can play this card every time on top of, hitting your old ruinate. It's gonna be very strong. It can even, kill all the buildings against England, even if they have plus and health.
Wow, I have not done this against England. Even with the increased number of games that I needed to play for this, I feel like there are so many things I didn't do. Something that I had noticed was that a lot of the cards that I was grabbing overlapped with the cards that I was grabbing for Vengeance. And we had mentioned him earlier as the disease spirit, but I feel like this spirit and that spirit have a lot of similarities about what they care about, at least in their cards. Like Weep for What Is Lost.
Oh yeah, this card is amazing for both spirits.
More often than not, I found myself going towards the animal side. A big thing about this was that the water side, I felt like it was lacking fear, and I might be able to come close to clearing out the entire board, but I didn't have a way to actually win the game. Is this a common problem?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem of Renew is that it lacks fear. So if you play against Scotland, you can feel this issue like very obviously. Like Scotland has a lot of plastics added on their board, and if you go Renew, yeah, sure, it can solve problems like very efficiently, but you are gonna just drag the game to like turn 8 or turn 9. But eventually, you still pretty much win because you can remove all the towns and then try to win turn level 2 instead of turn level 3, which is funny. And in games where renew works, you are trying to do. I mean, in solo because I'm very familiar with the fear with the fear time in solo. So in solo, your whole game plan is to try to generate enough fear to go to tier level 3, like by the last 2 or 3 turns of the game, and then remove all the buildings and try to win. I can definitely see that the fear generation is the biggest weakness of Ryu. Yes.
The way that they feel different is one does damage and the other one does downgrades. There aren't very many downgrades in the game as a whole. It's kind of unique to Wounded Waters that they get to do it as often as they do. Do you think it's a cool thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So downgrade is basically it reads a remove if you target to a explorer, which is very efficient into stuff like Russia. And if you can downgrade stuff with extra health, for example, livestock towns or England buildings, it also feels very satisfying. Another split with downgrade, I think, is roots, right? It can downgrade when you target your incarnate land with a bunch of buildings or explorers. And that also feels pretty cool. Downgrade is a way that you can efficiently deal with certain problem plastics that certain adversaries are very good at, like Russia explorers, England buildings, livestock towns. In these situations, downgrade feels very great.
I agree, 100%. Those are the times where I wanted to go to the water path. Do you find yourself ever, like, going into a matchup where you say, I want to do the water path, but the cards you find say you're not gonna get there this game? Sorry.
There are definitely situations where if you're attacking towards the water path and all your draft like animals and there are like blood-rot predator trying to lure into the animal path. But the amazing thing about Wounded Waters is that if you want to tech towards a certain path, you can always tech towards that by just playing your uniques, right? For example, if you're teching towards a water path, all you can do is that you play Corrupted Blood on turn one, get rid of the only animal card you have in hand, and turn two play Bloodwater, hit a water, and turn three play Draw and Rag, which both cards offer water. And after that, you can reclaim move this hand and still tech towards whatever card that you want.
The cheeky things you can do by playing your cards and acquiring that extra water or animal later is pretty neat. I think there's two other minors that kind of stood out to me. The first one stood out to me because it was the right elements, and yet it felt weaker than I thought it should be. And that is Call of the Dahan Ways. It has both water and animal, but it has the moon and it has a moon threshold. And I felt like I could never do it consistently. You don't have any moon in your starting cards.
Yeah, that's a big issue. So if you don't have Moon, you just remove one explorer, which is relevant into Russia, but into stuff like livestock, England, Scotland, you are more concerned about removing towns. So because you lack water, lack Moon, there are situations where are very rare that you're able to hit the two Moon. Thus, it's hard time to have to find value. But the upside of this card is that it has animal and water, so the element is always good. Wounded cares about elements. And another very funny thing is that all of the Dahan ways replaces pieces into Dahan. So it doesn't proc your special rule because replace is not a form of add. So it's a very interesting thing to notice.
That is pretty interesting. I may have screwed that up. Interesting. So the
Don't we all?
other card that I thought was neat while playing was Teeming Rivers. Again, both having the water and the animal, but this one has both the sun and the grass, which made it feel really good going down the water path, allowing you to max thresh out Waters Renew pretty consistently. And it has this blight removal if there's exactly one blight. And so if it's a bad built up blight land, normally this card just says, oh well. But you have this blight moving capability built in, and so you get to do that if you want to. Or if you go down the animal path, you get to add beasts, and so this card is doing damage.
Yeah, this card is amazing. It's actually also a quad element card where all elements are perfect element for innate if you go water path. It's like the mirrored card with VDP, right? VDP has the perfect element for your animal path. And removing blight is very relevant for wounded. Not because you are a spirit who starts with one extra blight from setup, and you're also sometimes taking forced blight from ravages. So healing blight is nice for you to, be able to stay healthy. Another thing about wounded is that you can grab blight to a correct land for any blight healing card you dropped it and then healed it. So any blight healing card is extremely strong for wounded. It can, ignore the targeting restriction for all the blight healing cards. And another fun fact is that when you play wounded and you attack towards the water path, like I think 7 out of 10 blight healing cards have water, and like 8 out of 10 blight healing cards have plants. So it's very easy for you to get into a situation where you drafted a lot of blight healing card, and you heal all the blight on your board, but you can't win because of that fear. So you just stall like forever. Your board is so clean from blight. Your board is like never gonna win until the last like 2 or 3 turns.
Especially with this water and potentially going down the water path, you're struggling to get that fear, you're not going through that fear deck. I feel
Yeah.
that. Whenever I looked at the major powers, I had noticed they have a lot of options. The first one that stood out to me was actually Winds of Rust and Atrophy, for no other reason other than the fact that it is a water animal card that downgrades. And it almost felt like it was resonating with the fact that Wounded Waters has a downgrade within its kit. And again, this is a pretty rare effect, so seeing that water animal in the major power doing downgrades was really cool to me.
Yeah, this card is amazing because first of all, it's a defense. Defense are always amazing, and it also has animal and water, which you can use to hit your innates. What's sad about this card is that it requires 3 air to threshold. So even though it's an L perfect element card, you so rarely threshold this card. But even then, it's still pretty good, just because the defense is very nice. It can be sometimes, I talk about drafting early majors into Sweden, and this is one of the cards that can help you stabilize the board.
Yeah, this card, Sweden hits hard, and this defend is pretty big.
Yeah.
It's if you downgrade a city, you're defending for way more than you look like you should be.
Yeah, they reduce two damage. Yeah.
There are a couple of other major powers that stood out to me. The ones from their expansion, Flocking Red Talons, felt really good. The downside that I experienced with this card was that it can't deal with cities very easily, but you're moving beasts around so much, and this synergizes with your damage that you're dealing with cities.
Yeah, so Flocking Red Talent is like one of the best features that Wounded can make use of. It upgrades this card so greatly. So even without a threshold, just use this once. You are able to add a beast, gather up to 2 beasts into target land. That's already 3 damage, 3 procs from your innate, and you can assign the damage as much as possible. I mean, as you want. And then Flocking Red Talons deals 1 damage to each invader based on the beast count, so it deals 3 damage to 3 different invaders total. So in this way, you're dealing 6 damage. You are able to solve a city town explorer land, which is, quite a feat for considering that it's a 3 cost major, and solving them fast is even stronger. If you can threshold this card, then you can solve 2 land with it, and you can also hit your innate. Sometimes you solve the third land. If you draft Falcon Red Talents and you are able to threshold it, basically you just solve the entire board and you can help out other boards like very quickly.
It almost felt like it was made for this spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that this card is one of the mirror cards to many minds. By mirror card, I mean something that this card represents a certain aspect of the vibes this spirit has, right? A lot of beasts moving from very far away lands and then grouped together. It's like basically the many mind vibe. Same as volcanic eruption as to volcano, and tigers hunting as to fans. But yeah, then wounded can make use this card so hard, and it also comes from the same expansion. It makes me feel like it's specifically designed around wounded.
The other one that came out in the same expansion, Ravaged Undergrowth slithers back to life, replaces Blight. And again, you have this Blight moving ability, and so you get to put the Blight in the place that matters for this card. I thought this was pretty easy to threshold too. First one that I'm mentioning where it's easy to threshold, and it has a really powerful effect.
Yeah, this card is if you can threshold anything. First of all, it kills 3 health worth meters, and then it removes a blight, which is very strong. And it has 2 wilds, and you are pushing the wilds to solve all the lands. So it's effectively a 3 land solve. It's very amazing. Wounded has some synergy with these cards. Based on the elements, you can easily threshold, and you can also pull the blight to relevant lands. And yeah, it's one of the stronger pulls from Wounded for sure.
Are there any majors that you're looking for? I just pulled out some that I think were pretty cool.
Well, yeah, Tiger's Hunting is another version of Flocking Red Talon for Wounded. Like, for example, it's adds a beast to target lands, gather the beast, and pushes 2 beasts. So you proc your special rule 4 times. It's even one more than Flocking Red Talon. and is a land soul. So you don't even need a threshold from this card to be able to perform much more than the threshold of this card. And what's more important and interesting is that this card needs to target in a land that has no blight. But Wounded is very good at managing blight, such that you can always use this card to hit in the land that doesn't have blight. So you're a very good enabler to this card.
The no targeting of blight in lands is kind of like the animal thematic tie-in, and Wounded Waters deals with that very well consistently. I like that.
Yeah.
Where do you think the spirit sits in a power chart? Are they in the top half, top quarter, bottom half?
I think it's definitely above average. It's so obvious that it's above average. I think it sits on par with spheres like Many Minds and Lure and Keeper. They basically dominate single sixes and are very good into some doubles, but may not be as strong as they are in these lower difficulties into sixes. So I like to categorize them in the similar power level as in the power level chart.
Okay. Are there any spirits that you like to play with, like in a two-player or maybe more player setting?
Yeah, there are quite a few spirits I like to play it with, and they have like very cool synergy with each other. One of them is Wildfire Transforming. The Wildfire is a spirit that can enable Wounded very much because you can give only Wounded elements, and Wounded can use elements very well. And it also gives Wounded drafts, and Wounded can fish for flocking red talents, tigers hunting, or bargains of forcing paths much more easier. And Wounded in turn can pull the Blight for Wildfire to use their innates, and can also pull the Blight out of the land that Wildfire is trying to get into. Like otherwise, Wildfire would have caused a Blight cascade when they grow. So they have a very cool synergy with each other. Also, Wildfire adds some balance, and Wounded, if you go Animal Path, can deal a lot of random one damage by pushing Tahan. With Balance, it becomes two, and it solves much more problems. You can also pair Wounded with Fangs. Fangs doesn't like blighted lands. Wounded can just remove blighted lands. I mean, by remove, I mean create some more, like grabbing the blight out, and not create more. Just grab the blight out, and Fangs can use ranging harm to target this land. Mighty Minds and Fangs can also take the beast that Wounded, just made, and they are just free beast. They like beasts a lot.
Yeah, because Wounded Waters isn't using the beast that often, right? They just kind of spit them out.
Yeah, so they are a very good pair just because Wounded is creating so much beast. You can also pair Wounded with Vengeance. Vengeance is a disease user. Wounded can finally use that disease to some spirit that matters, right? Okay, and Wounded can also grab Light, and Light is moving Badlands for Vengeance. And Vengeance can also help Wounded skip some big lands early game, such that you don't have to take too much blight if things go too wrong. There are definitely more combos that I haven't come to, but Wounded can pair with pretty much all the spirits in the game. They can have some very interesting interaction, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that an easy follow up is what are these bad spirit combos? But Wounded has so many options and weird niche scenarios where it's really good with almost every spirit.
Yeah.
What do you think the community thinks of Wounded Waters? In my head, I feel like Wounded Waters is really powerful late game, but almost a detriment in the first few turns.
Yeah, I think in terms of power level, I think the community generally doesn't think too highly of Wounded's power level for a long time before I tried to, take a look at how it can perform with some kind of optimized play. I've been trying to change that. I've been trying to voice out how strong one can be and how consistent it can be if you use, technique A, technique B, and then try to do some early reclaims. And it seems to work pretty well. And I still believe that Wounded is actually stronger than a lot of people on the community think. So yeah, I'm still pretty excited that Wounded is a spirit that has so much decision points and optimization you can make, even though it doesn't look like.
That's super cool that you think it is better than what the community finds it as. I love it whenever there's this disparity between an individual's perspective and the group think. I'd love to see where people think the spirit is in 6 months or 12 months, whenever there's even more time spent with the spirit. There's a lot of moving parts having the four healing cards, the multiple tokens it interacts with. There's a lot of nuance, so I can imagine why someone, without playing it a lot, would find it to be weak, or at least weaker.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you like Wounded Waters, do you think that there's another spirit someone should check out, or is Wounded Waters truly a one of a kind?
So, spirits like Wounded Waters, I think the first category I'm thinking about is token spirit, right? Wounded Waters is technically not a that token spirit, but it's still a token spirit. So if you like token spirit, you can check out spirits like Fangs, Many Minds, Vengeance, sometimes Stricture, and also Lure is a very good token spirit. And the other aspect of Wounded is about shifting nature and making, decisions that change your identity throughout the game. In this case, you can try to check out, Starlight, which also, has a lot of options to explore during the entire game.
I hadn't thought about Starlight being like Wounded Waters very much before our discussion, but you've mentioned it a couple of times, and every single time you do, I go, wow, you are so right. The two spirits are different in a lot of ways, and yet the way that they change and shift throughout the game has that overlap. So yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah, they're basically in the, shape your spirit, make your custom spirit kind of vibe.
Yeah. Would you like to see another custom spirit, build your own spirit throughout the game sort of spirit?
Yeah, of course. I personally find Wanted so interesting to explore. I also like Starlight, but Starlight feels like too strong, has too high of a value for me to actually explore. You just dominate every single game, so it doesn't really feel fun to play Starlight. But Wanted feels like in the exact spot where every kind of exploration feel matters because if you optimize, things go very well. If you don't optimize, sometimes things go wrong if the RNG is not in your way. I would like to see another custom spirit that has very strong theme, has very strong, a difference during their entire game.
Do you think that because of how they have these multiple paths, that they just have a lot of really good matchups in terms of adversaries? Or are there some that are still tough?
So Wounded is a spirit that can change their path, and each path has their specific strengths and weaknesses, right? So against different adversaries, you can tech towards different routes, and you can basically use your strength against adversaries that are weak to this certain path and so on and so forth. So basically, I don't think Wounded is bad into any adversary on single sixes, by the way. If you're talking about sixes, then I would say Sweden. So, for example, against England, it may feel that water path lacks fear, but you are also very good at removing explorers very fast, or by remove, I mean downgrade towns into explorers. So you still kind of outscale the adversary very quickly and into, I think, one of the hardest adversary livestock. You're also able to downgrade all their towns, move all their blight around to, try to make sure they don't blight cascade with irreparable damage. So it's still very strong. Against Russia as well, you can downgrade explorers very efficiently. Against pressure, you just go animal and stuff like that. You can choose your optimal path into each adversary, and these adversaries will just, get very crushed if you do things correctly.
I love the options that this presents. I think it's really neat that you can do the same matchup, let's say England, 3 times and come up with completely different solutions based on how you grew. It's very unique. It almost feels like you're playing multiple spirits in one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of Wounded.
Do you think that Wounded should be changed in any way? Buffed or tweaked, maybe nerfed?
I think any kind of a change needs some place test to make sure that they're good, they're adequate, and they are, players will like it. So all my suggestions might be kind of, tentative or something like that. So I think one of the ways we can try to change Wounded is that we can try to nerf the second healing card and try to make the early game much better, to even out the problem that is usually perceived, such as Wounded auto wins too much, and the early game is too bad, like these kind of cute feelings. But also, I think is kind of necessary in a way to deliver the entire theme of this spirit, right? For example, you need to have the great difference from the early game and the late game to feel like the spirit is really growing. The spirit is really trying to reclaim their their identity, and also you need to feel like your early weak early game is paid off by suffering all these turns and then finally be strong later. So I'm not sure, but one direction is definitely trying to even out the curve of this spirit to make it feel more fun to play. Even though I quite like the current form, by the way. And
Yeah.
maybe we could try to even add more healing paths. Like I remember the dev still have like one undelivered healing option where you just don't heal by turn 5, and you gain a special rule on turn 4 where it says each time you pushed plastics into, I mean, pushed pieces into a land, do 2 damage to target land and also 2 damage to the hog, which I feel is also pretty cool.
It'd be neat if there was a way to combine these. The two paths on turn 5 are very cool and powerful, but they're really distinguished from each other. And sometimes you just have cards that could do both, and I wish I could do both sometimes at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. There also could be a world where you could just take 2 healing cards with some downside, and that would be also pretty cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of routes that could be done there. I'm pretty happy
Yeah.
with where the Spirit has turned out, other than the fact that at the very end of the game, I feel like I'm a little too consistent in that I am too easily dealing with the problem lands, but the route to get there is where the Spirit really shines, I think.
Yeah, so when I was exploring the spirits early game, I feel like the most interesting part is actually how to manage your first 4 turns, because turn 5 plus you're basically just winning the game. The rest of the game is you're just playing solitaire. It's irrelevant what the adversary is doing. But the first 4 turns is very different. Against each adversary, you are having different game plans. You're playing different cards. You're taking towards different healing cards, and you're even grabbing the blight in different ways. So it feels very fun to try to optimize the first 4 turns. I can see that on turn 5 plus things get to like 2 consistent wins, stuff like that.
Is there anything that we missed that you want to go over?
Oh, I think one of the strong parts of Wonder is that it can grab blight, right? So grabbing blight has a lot of very good applications. So for example, the most obvious use is that you can grab blight such that you don't take a blight cascade in target land, but there's so much more that you can use the blight gather to do. For example, you can use the Blight Gather to play around edge cases. There are some events that adds a explorer in the land with Blight. Imagine you are playing against Russia and this land is ravaging. If you don't do anything about this land, it's gonna Blight cascade out of nowhere. But then you can just say, I would grab the Blight in a safer place, and then things just resolve themselves. Into stuff like livestock, what you can do is that you can grab the Blight in a appropriate place such that the land that is about to build doesn't take escalation and reminder cards. It's also a very fun optimization you can do with the Blight Gather.
There's a lot of character that you can show with that blight movement. I feel like if you were to sit down with 100 different Wounded Waters players, where they moved the blight would be different with almost all of them.
Yeah, basically, that I think that's the one of the most fun part of Wounded. Like, imagine the spirit that only plays two cards on first three turns. There must be something different to make this spirit fun. I think one of them is just grabbing the blight and trying to make use of the blight gather.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if this wasn't fun, then the spirit would definitely fall flat because you have to go through this the first 4 turns. You just have to do it. And so if this blight movement isn't in the kit, what are you doing?
Yeah, basically.
Would you like people to be able to reach out to you and find you, seek out your work? Should I?
Yeah, most of the time I'm chilling in Discord. In the server is called Spirit Islands Second Wave, and I'm also having a YouTube channel with the name qrave, Qive. If you are interested in finding me, you can go there.
Oh, cool. What do you post on your YouTube channel?
Usually some matchup videos, mostly about Wounded, Many Minds, Fangs, and sometimes Vengeance, sometimes like two-handed, three-handed games that I'm, mostly spirits that I'm interested.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Same here.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
See you later.